Welcome back to the Lawyer Dana Show from CPAC live in almost Washington, D.C., technically Maryland. And we have you got to watch this one. I mean, you got to watch this one. This is a big deal. So I got Shane Stevens here. You were on Alex Jones just recently, and Alex broke this worldwide, and we're going to be following up on this. We've got a 6-minute audio recording of LBJ, right?
Yeah, so it's Billy Saul Estes, that was my granddad, and Cliff Carter, who was LBJ's, I'd say, right-hand man, his bag man. He was the executive director of the DNC, and I think that may have been since the inception. They created the DNC around then. So you basically have the first executive director, one of the first, of the DNC, talking wide openly about LBJ being behind or involved in the murder of John F. Kennedy. The assassination.
So Trump just released a bunch of that. Has that come out yet? He authorized the release of JFK files, but has it come out?
It is not. In fact, I'm trying to figure out if I can get on there to where I can be part of the committee to fully review it. So they had, I think, 15 days in order to release it. And that 15 days is already passed. And then they have 45 days for a committee to assess it, review, and then release. So we're, let's say, 35 days away from that. So we're about to see what's there.
All right, you got this record. Let's play this recording.
Okay.
And just turn it all the way up and put it up to the mic.
Yeah. Just let me know if we can y'all in here okay or not.
It's sure good to see you. How's life treating you today?
Well, Saul, it's been a pretty touch and go situation. Lyndon and I have had quite a few unpleasant words here lately over the deal with that he hired Mike Wallace to assassinate the president. It's been hectic in every way, but we've lived through it this far, and I guess we'll continue to do so. Lyndon should have never issued that order to Mike, but we've had our differences, and I'm a true blue to Lyndon, as I've always been, and tried to carry out every order that he'd ever given me. But this is one I'll probably never be able to forget. And the times that we've had in Texas, and the embarrassment that Lyndon had gotten from Kennedy, I guess there wasn't anything else to do but what he did.
Well, you know, Lyndon could have really helped me if he would.
Well, Lyndon's the kind of person that doesn't want to help anyone. He's all for Lyndon, and that's the way he's pretty much always been.
Well, they had me backed up on that Henry Marshall killing, and they just kind of blackmailed.
So there's two voices on that recording. Which one's which?
All right. So the first gentleman that started talking is like, "Well, Cliff, how are you doing?" They have that's the West Texas.
I'm used to that.
Southern talk. That's how they talk. But that first one's Billy Saul Estes, my granddad.
Okay.
And I'd advise anybody that's intrigued by this, just look it up. Court cases, a lot of history with my granddad. And then he's talking with Cliff Carter.
Okay.
You'll hear another voice that comes in here in a little bit, and that's going to be Daryl Bright.
Okay.
And he married into my family. He married my Aunt Jan, and they had a sweet daughter, my cousin Star. She passed away several years back, but he was there. And apparently all I know is they went outside of town. He thinks it's to Hamby, Texas, to a small farmhouse, and had this meeting with Cliff Carter. Cliff died not long after this recording. And I'd heard
who made the recording.
That I don't know. So I don't know if.
How'd you get it?
So it came to basically through my family, through my brother, from Daryl. So Daryl Bright had held on to this tape for years, and this was probably 2015, 16, 17 time frame. He started to get dementia. He was concerned about his mental state, and so he called his daughter Star and said, "Look, I've held on to this thing for a long time. I have mental challenges right now, cognitive issues, so I want to get rid of it." And so my brother picked it up from him in Abilene and then brought it down. At the time, I had a safe room and a safe inside of that. So I kept it in there for years, and I only let a select few people listen to it.
What was the original format that it was in?
It's a little mini cassette. So it's a cassette, and it's a Panasonic mini cassette.
Okay.
A lot of people have been asking about that. What folks are saying is they're like, oh, it's probably AI. Or
that was going to be one of my questions. How do we know it's not just an AI recording?
And it's unfortunate. I mean, I'm a truthful person. I try not to fabricate or lie or embellish. So anybody that knows me knows that that's not the case. And I'm not that technically savvy. And I can assure you my granddad and my Uncle Daryl weren't technically savvy. But that's obviously
the good old boys in Texas don't seem to be too up on the technology.
No.
50 years ago.
No. So
do you know what the date of the recording was?
Not specifically. There's nothing written on the tape, nothing identifiable on it. I mean, it's just kind of.
Is it before or after the assassination?
Way after. So
way after.
It was, and I need to do a whole timeline of events, but I believe it was 1971 when my grandfather first got out of prison. So
what was he
got
in prison
out
for?
Well, that's a bigger part of the story. And to understand the importance of the tape and understand everything that's going on, you really have to understand that aspect of it.
Okay.
But long story short, the Kennedys in the 60s, early 60s, were going after LBJ. You can look it up. It's easy to find, but they wanted him out. They brought him in as VP because they basically had to. And then
why?
Well, to get the votes. They wanted the Southern votes, the Texas votes, and they needed him. But apparently that was not a good day in the Kennedy family when they made that decision. They said it was one of the worst days in Kennedy family history, according to one of my sources. But they brought him on, and ultimately they wanted him out. They knew that he had the Texas mafia or these ritual guys behind him, a bunch of big power brokers in Texas being one of them. So they started coming after my granddad. They sent 50 FBI agents to Pecos, Texas, a tiny little town, to investigate him.
So they doubled the population of the town.
Pretty much. And my granddad at the time was one of the wealthiest men in Texas. He was worth $600 million in the early 60s, late 50s, which...
You inherit any of that?
Got nothing. They took it all from him.
What?
Yep. So I've had to rebuild from scratch. But I got this tape. Oh, it's just really been a curse, but maybe it's a blessing. Time will tell. So they were really attacking LBJ. But my granddad was basically the way to get to him, and that was over these cotton allotments, grain storage contracts, anhydrous storage tanks. So there were kind of multiple avenues that they were digging into to find something that would stick.
So what are they talking about in the tape?
And so you've got up front Cliff Carter saying, well, I'm true blue, as I always have been, and I followed every order he's ever given me, but this is one I'll never forget. So he's basically saying Lyndon issued an order to kill John F. Kennedy, our president at the time, to kill him. And he's struggling with it. Cliff was struggling a lot with it. And then supposedly around that same time, and I think that tape was recorded in 1971, because my granddad had just gotten out of prison, and then Cliff Carter died, I think it was in September of 1971. So there was about a 6-7 month window there that it could have been recorded between when my granddad got out and when Cliff Carter died. But he's...
Why did Cliff die?
I researched it. I believe he ended up passing away up in D.C. And I've heard that, perhaps it was a suspicious death to some degree. But everything online that I've found says that it was a natural causes. But he was pretty young. He was maybe 55, I think, 60 years old max. So he was young for his age. Passed away.
How did they take all your grandfather's money? How did that go down?
So I know that there was at least $100 million, maybe a little bit more, that was put into bankruptcy. And then if you're familiar with Horseshoe Bay in Texas, the there was a gentleman, I think it's Milton Jaffe. So the Jaffes are
Heard the name.
behind Horseshoe Bay. Well, he bought something like $100 and something million worth of assets for maybe $5 million. So
Wow.
the Jaffes, they took a lot of that. And in fact, there was an issue a while back where some oil mineral rights came up that were under my grandmother's name. And this was, I don't know, let's say 7-8 years ago. Those mineral rights were worth something to the effect of $47 million. And the Jaffes got involved, and they're like, nope, per the bankruptcy agreement, everything, regardless of whether it was him or anybody else, goes to them. So that $47 million had to get transferred out of my grandmother's name, even though they're long since passed away and deceased, and transferred over to the Jaffes. So a huge settlement sum to them that they didn't even know existed. Another $47 million.
Are you sure that that was legit? Did you hire attorneys to look into that, or?
You know, that's really my uncle and my mom and my aunts, and that's their decision. That's their call. I encouraged them to, but they opted not to.
Wow. You know, I might have taken that on a contingency.
Well, it's
Fought
probably
it
not
for him
too
for
late.
free.
No, I think they signed
That's
the
probably too
settlement
late.
agreement.
Oh, did they? Okay. Well, then maybe they got a little bit of money out of that. I would hope.
I don't know. Do not know.
I don't know. That just put it away. So let's go back to the tape. Let's pick it back up and listen to the rest of it.
All right.
Me to keep my mouth shut.
I don't help anyone. He's all for Lyndon, and that's the way he's pretty much always been.
Well, they had me backed up on that Henry Marshall killing, and they just kind of blackmailed me.
And just sorry to interrupt, but that is my granddad talking there, where he's saying they had me backed up on that Henry Marshall killing, and then the other gentleman is Cliff Carter. So hopefully that kind of helps to differentiate the two.
Got it.
Keep my mouth shut. And if I hadn't had a bunch of tapes that I played after he got killed, you know, 17 got killed in this situation very mysteriously. And I've done a lot of time, and I lost a lot of money, and hurt my family a whole lot. And it's really got me disgusted with Lyndon in one way. In one way, I feel real sorry for him. But I really feel like that in Lyndon's heart, he felt like that he was doing the right thing. He felt like that he was the savior of the common man. I feel like that in his heart he wanted to help people that had not. But I don't believe that anything, my church background would have never let me sanction all the killings that he has done. What do you think about it, Cliff? Do you really believe that it could have been handled anyway without killing all these people and got rid of the Kennedys? You think he won the election against him?
Well, I don't really believe so. You know, he tried desperately to do just that, and there didn't seem to be any other way. I know that he regrets a lot of things that he has done, but still, it's been a battle from day one.
Well, Darrell, I sure do appreciate all the things that you've done for us, and I appreciate the trust that I have in you anytime for a long-time friend. And I'm just sorry that I've embarrassed all my friends and put all my friends through this. Oh, you didn't embarrass me. And what I was really afraid of, my brother Bob that got killed, our plane was down at Bryan the day that Mike Wallace killed Henry Marshall. And I was afraid it's going to tie him into the thing, and we couldn't afford to. In fact, Pam started to write a book. And when she really got scared when she got into the thing, it was just too scary a deal. But anyhow, this too will pass. Well, it's been a long, long old journey. What do you think about F.O. Bankston.
Well, W.O.'s a great leader, and he's been probably one of the best things that ever happened in Dallas, Texas. Of course, he's got a lot of real good friends, and Lyndon's been one of his true buddies for many, many years. And anything that he just has to have, W.O. will see that it's done.
And I just can't believe that F.O. Bankston has the power over the police department that he has. He buys every year, the sheriff buys him a brand new car, Bill Decker. And I just don't see how politically that he can get with it. But nobody will ever understand. And really, in the early years, I thought that Lyndon really had a mission from a higher power, who I choose to call God, to carry out a lot of things for the common people. And I really believe in his heart that he thought that he was destined to rule the people. How do you size up Lyndon Cliff after all these years of horror?
Well, actually, Lyndon's just been kind of going downhill, health-wise, politically wise. He's just wore out, and I feel like he's come to his end of his rope. But all these things that's been eating on him for all these years are just now taking its course. And I feel like Lyndon's done a lot of good things in his life, and he's done a lot of bad things.
Well, Cliff, I hate to see you so downtrodden and so discouraged, and I just hope that you can hold of yourself and not be so tore up. But anyhow, let's go in the house and let's have a cup of coffee and something to eat. Okay?
Sounds good to me. So,
Okay.
What do you take? Your biggest takeaway out of that? Is it that LBJ ordered Kennedy's killing? Do you think your grandfather did it?
So my granddad always maintained his innocence in it. He was at the White House when LBJ kind of gave the final committed order that they were going to do it. And it was supposedly my granddad, Malcolm Wallace or Mac Wallace, Mike Wallace, which there's some interesting stuff on that. That was LBJ's hitman. So my granddad, LBJ's hitman, Mac, and then Cliff Carter. The four of them were there when LBJ said, we're going to move forward with this and do it. My understanding is with, perhaps my granddad is, certain people, and perhaps LBJ, they'll basically bring you into it, and you're complicit now because and you don't have a way out of it because
Who are you going to tell?
Right. You can't go any higher. So otherwise you're going to get killed. So he was knowledgeable of it, and held his grade that he knew that LBJ was behind it, but that he didn't have anything to do with it himself personally.
So do you think that Oswald was a patsy?
I'm convinced Oswald was a patsy.
You think Oswald actually took a shot?
I don't think he did. There's a lot of experts on this whole topic, and I've been talking to them. I've learned more about this thing in the last month and a half than I have in an entire lifetime. I really haven't paid that much attention to it or looked into it that much. Frankly, I just wanted to stash it away and not deal with it because it was embarrassing. But now is my personal take, and from what I heard from my granddad, is he was a patsy. He was set up. It was staged. And in fact, my granddad used to take calls from Oswald's wife. She would call him and talk to him back in, it seems like in the 90s. I remember them talking. I thought it was just weird that my granddad was talking to Lee Harvey Oswald's wife. But
Did you ever overhear any of that?
No.
Did your grandfather ever tell you anything about that?
He never said anything specific. But you can, what I've picked up on Oswald. Now, there's experts out there that know a lot more about this than me that think that he was one of the shooters. But from what I understand, everybody thought he was this communist sympathizer and all these challenges with him. He was a low-level CIA asset spy. He was saying all of that because he was trying to infiltrate the party, the Communist Party, for the CIA. Because in talking to his mother and his brother, they said no, he liked John F. Kennedy. He was a fan of JFK. He was not a communist. Like, he's never said anything about this to us. So that was part of his facade of who he was needing to be like in order to infiltrate. But then there's also tapes of J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI at the time, and LBJ talking. And some of it seems like they're kind of trying to set him up a little bit, but some of it seems like perhaps J. Edgar Hoover really thought that he might have been behind it, and they were trying to get some information on it. So it's kind of confusing.
What else have you learned?
The most recent thing I've learned is at the end, they divert off of the whole topic of LBJ and they move over to Bill Decker, and he was I think the sheriff, the chief of police of Dallas. Never thought too much of it until one of these experts, I was on the Ocelli effect the other day, and I was like, what's the deal with that guy? Bill Decker and H.O. Bankston, and H.O. was a big financial guy, lived in Dallas, owned a car dealership, and apparently he would.
Bankston,
So you live, that's right, you're Dallas, you know more than me. Apparently he was given money, owned the police department up there. So to me, they're indicating somehow he was involved in it. But then Bill Decker, he was in the lead car leading the procession that day of Kennedy. So if you look at the careers and the wealth of all the people that were involved and just, innocent bystanders, whether they're folks on the Warren Commission, folks that kind of rose to power afterwards, everybody that was in the periphery around the JFK assassination rose to massive levels of wealth and power. Most all of them did. The other thing I learned is Malcolm Wallace, the hitman that they talk about, Mac, they reached out to me. And jaw on the floor going, we cannot believe you're talking about this. And we can't believe that our stories match.
Really?
So they're very close.
Are there any threats to your life right now?
Nobody's threatening my life.
And by the way, that's not an invitation. This man needs to be kept safe.
Yeah, there have been no threats. That was always the family internal story, is if they know that we have tape and we have this information, you'll get killed. And so you kind of keep your head on a swivel, keep a low profile, and it is freeing.
So what brought you to have the courage to come out and do this?
It was a Thursday morning. I woke up in bed and it just was on me. I think it was from God, and it said, you need to release this tape. It's time. And so Alex Jones had been really good to this not-for-profit that I'm involved in. It's one of my buddies, Mike Yoder, runs it and founded it.
What's the name of
it? But it's Citizen AG. So they did a lot in the election integrity space. And they probably at least 4 million votes that they prevented from going through.
Wow.
It was massive. And that's through Eric. Eric is the real challenge there. But where were we going with that? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Things you've learned out of.
Yeah, Bill Decker, F.O. Bankston, they funded it. Oh, Mac Wallace. So they're real close to being willing to step out, and they're like, we want our faces covered, because they're embarrassed by it. He was probably one of the shooters up there. Very high probability that he was one.
Is he still alive?
No, he supposedly died. Maybe it was in the 70s. But my granddad said that he saw him in Las Vegas in the 80s, still alive, as if they'd perhaps faked his death.
Interesting.
Again, I don't know personally. I'm not giving 100% vouching for that, but that's what Salt said.
Interesting. That's an incredible story, man. I wasn't expecting to hear that today.
Well, the implications of it, you're a smart guy. It looks like so if you start to look at, okay, wait, if they were able to successfully cover this up, if they pulled a coup, and it was an absolute coup, lied to the American public, got away with it now for 60 plus years, that's not the only thing that they've lied to us about and covered up.
Oh, no.
And you start to look at the history of the DNC and the people involved, and you start to look into the folks that they kind of implicate with this, of who else was potentially involved. It leaves a pretty bad history for the last 60 years. And so my opinion is the truth shall set us free. And just this morning in my little personal Bible study time, one thing that I came across, it's always said, I've always heard, a house divided cannot stand.
Mhm.
But in that same passage, it's Mark, I think Mark 3:24 or something like that. It also says a kingdom divided cannot stand. And so if we're going to get back to the true blessings of what I think this country deserves based on its founding roots and what we're built on, we have to get rid of this deceitful, evil, corrupt past. We have to repent from it. We have to open up that whole wound and let everybody see what's there, and then hopefully it'll heal.
Shane, I really appreciate you coming in and talking with us.
Yes, sir.
So,
thanks for having me on.
Live at CPAC 2025. This is the Lawyer Dana Show. Like, subscribe, turn your alerts on, little bell, turn it on all, because we're more to come. And we really appreciate your support. Thank you very much, Shane.
Yes, sir. Thanks for
Really
having me.
appreciate it.
Enjoyed it.
We'll follow up later.